Hey folks, Champesk here bringing another audio commentary. I hope you've all been having a great sort of Christmas time, and hope you have a good New Year's. If you'll probably watch this after New Year's, depending on when I get this up. But today I'm going to be commentating a pretty old game. It's from patch 1.22, so it's not too old, and there aren't too many balance changes between then and now. But it's a game between TeD and Tod, and it's really an excellent game, I think, and it's sort of a game that I certainly remember. That's why I've decided to do it, basically because there aren't any better games around, and I think it's going to be a while before they come out, and I'm going to be away for a little while longer. So we're gonna do some old games now, just because there's no new games out, despite what. So like, it's amazing, some of the other commentators on YouTube are just sort of, you can see that they've gotten down to sort of the dregs. They're commentating all the random BattleNet games, and just generally not too interesting games, and so I think I'm going to take another route and actually go for sort of quite interesting, if not relevant, games. And you might have actually seen it, I'm not sure, but you'll notice that TeD's going for what appears to be sort of a standard altar crit build. He went for a fast altar and ziggurat, so that he's going to get his death knight out a bit earlier. It's going to mean that he gets later goals, but that's not going to be a huge deal, because if he wants to go and harass with his death knight, obviously that's the priority. And what you'll notice now is he's actually sending his acolyte in a weird direction. He's not sending it to scout directly to this expansion. I think I'm going to cast this game as if I don't know what's going on, just because it's it'd be sort of more interesting, I think, for people then. And obviously Tod doing the standard scouting of just sending a militia. Obviously you don't build a farm against an undead in the base, but you can just scout around, see if it's a fiend build. And you notice TeD's actually going for a late graveyard, so we are going to be seeing, when I say late, I mean it's not a fast fiend build, but it's certainly not like a late graveyard, and so we are going to be seeing fiends fairly early in the game. And TeD is going for a necropolis right by Tod's natural expansion here, and so obviously some tremendously risky play here by TeD. And what he's really banking on here is that Tod's going to go for an expansion, because if he does, then TeD's going to have the blight. He can put up towers, and he can generally just siege the expansion without really Tod becoming too aware of it. I think this is going to be quite a risky strategy for TeD, because if it doesn't work, then he's lost a lot of gold, and Tod will just be able to sort of run rampant with his expansion and just really play the long game. And obviously it's really hard for undeads to expand. Meanwhile, TeD coming in now. TeD likes to do this against archmages especially. He just constantly wastes all his coils basically, but just constantly coils the archmage, and so it takes a lot of damage over time, and it really hinders its ability to creep, and it really hinders the human's ability to play aggressively. And Tod now has 3 footmen, is bringing in how many militia? Just 2 militia. So yeah, he's going to be creeping this camp first. Obviously he wants level 2s, just so he can, I mean, obviously aura is important, but also it's really useful against TeD sort of just coil the archmage tactic that he often goes for. And you can see Tod just doesn't want to keep his archmage around, and Tod actually very close to scouting out this necropolis here, but TeD turns around possibly because he doesn't want Tod just scout out the expansion, or scout out the sort of proxy necropolis. And so actually Tod doesn't manage to scout it in time, and it isn't up yet, so there's no blight to be scouted out yet. And actually for this next bit, I think we should just go on Fog of War to see if actually Tod can scout out this blight, or if he's actually just going to expand here and fall into TeD's sort of devious trap. And meanwhile TeD trying to hold up the footman here, just trying to keep Tod from being able to actually creep this out. And I think that's because TeD's going to be putting up, TeD's putting up some ziggurats here. Obviously he wants some towers up, so he wants really this to take as long as possible. And meanwhile TeD now scouting out this blight, but still going for the expansion. I'm not sure if he didn't actually see it, because you can see it sort of in the dark here, and you really aren't expecting it, so it's not something that you're looking for. So I think it's very possible that Tod actually didn't manage to say that. I might have said TeD there for a second. I apologize if I did. They have tremendously similar names. All we needed is a TeD, a TAD, and a TUD, and I'll be completely insane. But Tod manages to get this creep. Is level sort of 2.6 or so by now, and I'm taking a bit of damage on his archmage, but he has managed to creep this out, and TeD does now have his first fiend out. So Tod's probably thinking he's going to be trying to slow play this. And meanwhile though, we can see that Tod's finally now scouted out this blight here, and you can see he's curious, but he doesn't want to get into the range. He wants to see what's there, but he really doesn't want to take the risk. And now TeD just being sort of quite sort of hit and runny here, just sort of trying to get a couple free hits off on this archmage and on whatever low footman he can. But meanwhile staying out of the range of the actual footman, and managing to take off 1 footman and a Nerubian tower out first. And this is probably a fairly good choice, especially with fiends, just because it means that you can get so many free hits on while it's trying to run away. Whereas a spirit tower, you know, it does a lot more damage, but it just sort of goes down. You can just get out of the range a lot more quicker, so the total damage you do is actually lower. And Tod really, it looks like he actually has just started researching defend, and that's going to be really effective because obviously pretty much all of TeD's damage here is coming from piercing between sort of the tower, the fiends, and the Death Knight isn't getting too many hits in, and no more skeletons yet, but I imagine he does have backpack upgraded, so he could bring some more in with his fiends if he chooses. And meanwhile, Tod obviously needs to put up a lot of towers to hold this expansion. He's putting up one arcane tower, which is obviously really important against undead, especially with their skeletons. And TeD doing a very nice job here of microing. He's managing to take out a couple low footmen before they get defend up, at which point TeD might have to change up his strategy. But Tod's expansion is now up now, and TeD getting pretty close to level 2, actually just hits level 2 now with one last footman kill, and it's going to mean that he will have the aura, and so he's going to have really Imba hit point regeneration, especially when he's on the Blight as well, because Blight provides tremendous hit point regeneration, and it's really hard to fight against an undead in his base, as you almost certainly know, because of things like Blight and Spirit Towers and Nerubian Towers and whatnot. And TeD going for another Ziggurat here, but Defend is now upgraded for Tod, and so really the effectiveness of these fiends has been really lowered, and you can see that TeD just decides it's not worth attacking those footmen anymore, and instead starts to go for towers. He almost takes one down with one volley from his fiends, but it just manages to stay up, and looks like 2 arcane towers now for Tod. I'm not sure if he doesn't have a lumber mill up yet. Well, that's definitely something you should get, just because it's all well and good having a couple arcane towers at most, but you really need some guard towers if you want to actually protect your base properly. And meanwhile, TeD now managing to do a good job of cancelling those towers, but it is now being chased back by Tod, and has a lot of low fiends as well, you can see, and TeD being careful to keep them on the Blight for as long as possible, just so that he can heal them up as much as possible. And also you can see the placement of his Ziggurats here just means that he's extending the his Blight as well, and building another Nerubian tower. Obviously he just wants to sort of creep forward. This is something that actually I've seen undead do versus elf before, so they just put up they get a sacrificial skull, put up one Ziggurat quite far away from, say, an elf expansion, and then just slowly move in with tower after tower, and there's no point at which the elf can actually attack, because they always are in range of towers, and so it actually becomes quite a powerful push. And the Panda out second for TeD, not too surprising really, because obviously against mass footmen they tend to group up a bit, and just Breath of Fire is so good against them. But TeD now being forced quite far back into this Blight area here, and trying to put up a slaughterhouse. Obviously it'd be advantageous if he could build it here, but it looks like it's just going to get cancelled by these footmen, because Tod decides that he'd rather just take the damage on his footmen and actually cancel that sort of half build slaughterhouse, and that's a very good decision from him. But meanwhile, level 3 on that Archmage now, and so until Destros get out, which is probably going to be a fair whiles away, those water elementals are going to be really damaging to TeD, and TeD now taking a lot of damage on this one fiend, but does have burrow upgraded, and so it does manage to burrow at the last second, and TeD getting his slaughterhouse cancelled again, but just rebuild it, and it's I think Tod's now decided that it's not really worth trying to take it out again, but lots of the damage on his Death Knight down to 120 hit points. But obviously with that really nice hit point regeneration, he can just stay on the Blight for a bit and just try and heal up a bit. And the Panda now coming in, but against these 2 arcane towers, there's really not much the Panda can do, because it will just lose all its mana before it can even get into range, and you can see that's what's happening here. He's now Panda's now down to 0 mana, so may as well actually move in, but decides against it. I guess he just wants to get his mana back as soon as possible. And these couple fiends though are managing to do a lot of damage to these arcane towers. Still 0 masonry upgrade, which is a bit surprising. I wonder if he doesn't have a lumber mill. It'd be pretty odd. No, he does have a lumber mill. He really should go for those masonry upgrades. But putting up 2 arcane sanctums as well. Obviously breakers are really good against fiends, and having priests is also really useful, just because in these sort of battles you want lots of healing, and things like arcane scrolls, which Tod now is using now, just don't heal fast enough, because and they can be cancelled obviously as well. And you can see TeD does want to stay on the Blight, but he also does want to do as much damage as possible, and he does move off the Blight, but he does have to move back on now, and he does have a his first statue coming up now as well, and I think that's sort of why he's more willing to move off the Blight now, because he knows he's going to get some pretty good healing pretty soon. And you also check his TeD is technically tier 3 as well. Obviously there's a lot of options for a third hero for undead. Lich is obviously a good one, because it means that you can pick up your orb as well, and it is very useful to have that orb on a ranged hero. And Todd has now gotten the Mountain King second as well, and so obviously Mountain King very nice to get with Arcane Towers against lots of heroes, because you can just bolt them within range of the Arcane Towers and they lose all their mana. Meanwhile, very nice bolt dodge there by TeD, just moving into borrowed form. He does actually take the damage from the bolt, but he doesn't. He can't be focused down because Tod obviously hasn't had a chance to go to a shop yet. He's been sort of so forced in all game, and the Death Knight is now surrounded, but does manage to fight his way out, and then moves right to the back of the base. He does have really good hit point regeneration now, so it's not the end of the world. And Panda taking a lot of damage as well, can't be coiled, and look, he does need to be moved back. And obviously, the further Tod moves into the space, the more damage he takes. But TeD does, but he does manage to do a fair bit before having to sort of move back here. This is a really nice choke point here for TeD, where there's only a couple spaces where Tod can actually move through with all his melee units, and so Tod decides he doesn't want to fight there, and forcing a TP there from Tod, but it will just be a TP to this expansion here, and so Tod will just be healing up immediately, and needs to hope that TeD doesn't come in for a coil on this Archmage. But it does actually buy a healing potion as well, which is going to save him for a bit longer. But this Panda